It has been 3 years since the beginning of the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine. During that time, Russia has lost a lot of weapons. In this video, we listed the top 10 best Russian weapons lost in Ukraine so far. But before we jump into the video, I would like to encourage you to leave a comment. It will increase my channel's visibility on YouTube. You can write whatever you want, a dot, slash, dash, or simply leave a tactical comment. Thanks in advance. Now, back to the video. Number 10 is the Courier unmanned combat vehicle. Both Russians and Ukrainians have revolutionized warfare by using drones in big numbers to attack enemy targets from the air with great success. However, both sides are currently taking this rivalry to the ground. The first reports of Russians attempting to use armed unmanned ground vehicles in combat came in 2018 during the intervention in Syria. In this case, the Russians tested in combat with poor results the Uran-9 armed unmanned ground vehicle. In turn, the Courier was first used in combat during the fighting in the Avdiivka area in late March 2024, where they supported Russian soldiers using 30mm AGS-17 grenade launchers. After these events, the vehicle was put into serial production. The Courier weighs 250 kilograms and is powered by an electric motor of 6 kilowatts, which gives it a maximum speed of 35 kilometers per hour and an operating time of at least 12 hours. The basic task of this vehicle is fire support because it can be armed with one of 3 types of weapons: a 30mm AGS-17 or AGS-30 grenade launcher, the NSWT heavy machine gun chambered for 12.7mm rounds, or a PKT machine gun with a supply of 900 rounds. Additionally, it can carry RPG-26 or RPG-30 grenade launchers. Also, there is a version designed for mine laying, which carries 8 TM-62 or TM-83 anti-tank mines. Currently, the Russians have produced at least 10 Couriers, and confirmed losses are 4 of them. Number 9 is the BMD-4M. This vehicle was revealed in 2008. BMD-4M is an improved variant of the BMD-4. The vehicle boasts a number of improvements, including a new chassis and a new fire control system. It's completed with the same armament carried by the BMP-3, the 100mm gun, and the coaxial 30mm autocannon. Its 100mm gun can fire Bastion laser-guided anti-tank missiles. This missile has a range of 5,500 meters and can also target helicopters. In some cases, the BMD-4M can replace main battle tanks and artillery units with its firepower during landing operations, which is important for the Russian airborne troops, which are the only users of these vehicles. At the time of making this video, they have lost around 171 of them. However, the Russians are still producing this vehicle, and despite the losses according to the Military Balance 2025, they currently have around 200 of them. Number 8 is the T-90M. The first T-90Ms were delivered in the spring of 2020, and they are currently the latest version of the T-90 in service with the Russian Armed Forces. The T-90M is created both by rebuilding older versions and by newly built machines. The scope of modernization aims at increasing firepower, improving armor, and mobility. The main armament is a 125mm 2A46 M5 smoothbore gun, which allows for usage of a newly developed Svinets 1 and Svinets 2 APFSDS rounds with tungsten and depleted uranium penetrators, as well as 9M119M anti-tank guided missiles. But the biggest advantage of the T-90M over other tanks used by Russia is that, unlike in previous designs, with one small exception that I will mention in a moment, the commander has his own independent thermal viewer called PKPAN Sokolny Głos at his disposal. This solution has been a standard for Western tanks for a very long time, but in Russia, it's only a standard for the T-90M and the T-14. A small exception, which I mentioned a moment ago, is the usage in Ukraine of a few T-72B3 model 2014, of which 3 had been lost, including 1 captured by the Ukrainians. They were previously seen only during the famous tank biathlon competition held in Russia. At the time of making this video, 112 T-90Ms had been lost, including 7 captured in various shapes by the Ukrainians. However, the Russians are still producing this vehicle, and despite the losses according to the Military Balance 2025, they currently have around 400 of them. Number 7 is the Su-34M. Produced since 2005, the Su-34 was created to replace obsolete aircraft such as the Su-24. It's a derivative of the Su-27, easily distinguishable by its side-by-side cockpit and platypus nose. The Su-34 design retains the Su-27's basic layout, construction of the airframe, engines, most of its wing structure, tail, and substantial part of onboard equipment. It's armed with a 30mm GSH-301 cannon with a capacity of 180 rounds. Also, it has 12 underwing and under-fuselage hardpoints for a wide range of weapons with a total weight of up to 8 tons. The Su-34M, which was introduced into service in 2022, differs from its predecessor by incorporation of a modified onboard electronic systems that allow the use of a new optical, electronic, and radar reconnaissance pod from the Seek family. Also, a novelty is the COP-IDL rearward-facing radar, which, if necessary, warns of approaching threats and automatically deploys countermeasures and jamming. Currently, Su-34 aircraft are priceless to the Russians, as they are responsible for a large part of the glide bombs dropped on Ukrainian positions, the production of which is to reach 70,000 in 2025. The drops include both modern UMPBD-30SN and FAB series of gliding bombs weighing from 250 to 3,000 kilograms. They are equipped with UMPK modules, which extend their range and allow for precise bombing from outside the range of Ukrainian air defense. Russia has ordered only 76 modernized Su-34Ms, which are scheduled for delivery by 2027. So far, 31 of them have been delivered, out of which 1 had been destroyed in Ukraine. As for the older variant of the Su-34, at the time of making this video, the Russians had lost 32 of the total of about 140 aircraft delivered. Number 6 is the Su-35S. This aircraft made its first flight on February 19, 2008. While lacking an active phased array radar, contrary to the Western modernizations of the fourth-generation fighters, like for example the F-16V or Fa-18 Super Hornet, the Su-35S new Urbis phased array radar can detect targets at distances up to 400 kilometers and track simultaneously up to 4 ground targets or up to 30 airborne targets, as well as engaging up to 8 airborne targets at the same time. Besides, the radar control system has the friend or foe identification capability for aerial and maritime objects. It's capable of identifying the class and type of airborne targets, as well as taking aerial photos of the ground. According to the Russian claims, the system can be used in any weather at any time of the day and remain effective in the face of interference, either natural or organized by the enemy electronic warfare systems. It's armed with a 30mm cannon and has 12 hardpoints for mounting missiles. At the time of making this video, 7 Su-35Ss had been destroyed. Despite the losses, Russia at this moment still has 117 of them. Number 5 is the S-70 Okhotnik. Developed in May 2011, the S-70 Okhotnik is an unmanned aircraft designed as a flying wing to reduce its radar signature, capable of operating independently and in a group with manned aircraft such as the Su-57. 14 meters long and with a span of 19 meters, the S-70 Okhotnik can carry up to 2,800 kilograms of weapons in its internal compartments. And thanks to the use of a single engine from the Su-57, it is capable of reaching a maximum speed of up to 1,400 kilometers per hour and a range of up to 6,000 kilometers. Currently, the Russians do not yet have mass-produced Okhotniks and are at the prototype testing stage. Such a test took place, among others, on October 5, 2024, where the S-70 and the Su-57 aircraft were able to enter Ukrainian-controlled territory unnoticed, where the S-70 was most likely to launch a UMPB-D-30SN glide bomb at one of the Ukrainian targets. However, the Russians lost control of the drone and the Su-57 shot it down with a short-range air-to-air missile. The wreckage, along with the remains of the most technologically advanced UMPB-D-30SN glide bomb introduced into service in 2024, fell in the area of Konstantinivka, located on the Ukrainian side of the front. Thanks to this, the Ukrainians were able to obtain its wreckage, which will now be used to collect intelligence data. So far, the Russians have lost one of their 4 S-70 Okhotnik prototypes. Interestingly, the Ukrainians managed to damage 1 or 2 Su-57 aircraft, depending on the source, in the attack from June 8, 2024, on the Akhtubinsk airport, located about 460 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Number 4 is the S-400. The S-400 is currently one of the most modern Russian long-range surface-to-air/anti-ballistic missile system. Its task is to combat all kinds of air threats, including intercontinental ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads in the final phase of their flight. The history of this system dates back to the late 1980s, and the goal was to replace the S-300s. The first S-400s entered service on April 28, 2007. The Russians declare that the radar for the S-400 complex is capable of detecting targets from a distance of up to 600 kilometers, and the range of combating the enemy when using 40 N-6 missiles is even 400 kilometers. Unfortunately, the reality is not so perfect, because in Ukraine the success of the S-400 on the battlefield against the HIMARSs are, to put it mildly, modest. To make matters even worse, in 2019, the Swedish Defense Research Agency published a report according to which the capabilities of the S-400 are twice as low as declared. At the time of making this video, 17 S-400s had been destroyed. Despite the losses, Russia at this moment still has 444 of them. Number 3 is the Rostov-na-Donu submarine. The Rostov-na-Donu, part of the Russian Black Sea Fleet, is the second submarine from Project 636.3 Varshavyanka, NATO codenamed Improved Kilo, built for the Russian Navy. Initially, the Project 636 submarines were intended for export to Warsaw Pact countries, hence their Russian name, but ultimately their first user was China. Project 636 is a modernization of the Project 877 and 877 EKM submarines, NATO codenamed Kilo. The less than 74-meter-long Project 636.3 submarine has a diesel-electric engine, which allows it to operate without calling at a port for up to 45 days. However, the most important thing is that it can be armed with up to 4 caliber family of cruise missiles, which have a maximum range of 375 kilometers in the case of versions designed to hit enemy ships, and between 2,000 and 2,600 kilometers in the case of versions designed to hit targets on land. Interestingly, the Caliber cruise missile can carry a nuclear warhead with a power of 1 kiloton. The first attack on Rostov-na-Donu was carried out by the Ukrainians on the night of September 12 to 13, 2023, using a Storm Shadow or Scalp cruise missile donated by Great Britain or France. As a result of the attack, the Russian ship was seriously damaged. In turn, the final destruction took place a year later, on August 2, 2024, at the shipyard in Sevastopol, where Rostov-na-Donu was being repaired after the first attack. This time, the Ukrainians used the ATACMS ballistic missile donated by the United States. Number 2 is the Tu-22M3. Produced from 1978 to 1993, the Tu-22M3 is currently the latest version of the Tu-22M bomber in service with the Russian Aerospace Forces. The Tu-22M3 can carry up to 24 tons of armament at a time. Its main task is to perform heavy bomb and missile strikes with the use of cruise missiles such as the Kh-22 against important naval targets such as the American aircraft carrier strike groups, as well as against ground targets with the use of general-purpose air-dropped bombs such as the Fab-500 and cruise missiles such as the hypersonic Kh-47M2 Kinzhal. So far, Tu-22 M3 bombers have been used in combat in Chechnya, Syria, and Ukraine. Before the war in Ukraine, the Russians had 60 out of the total of 268 aircraft built of this type in service. So far, they have lost 3 of them. Interestingly, the Russians are planning to build from scratch using unfinished fuselages that have been stored at the airport near the Kazan aviation plant since the 1990s, or to modernize 30 existing Tu-22 M3 bombers to the M3M standard. It will allow the Russians to operate these aircraft for another 45 years. Number 1 is the Beriev A-50U. Produced from 1978 to 1992, the A-50 is a Soviet airborne early warning and control aircraft based on the IL-76 transport plane. The Beriev A-50U, which has been delivered to the Russian Air Force since 2011, is a modernization of the existing A-50s, but it features new updated onboard equipment and increased operational range. Also, it's equipped with a large surveillance radar, with its antenna in an over-fuselage rotating radar dome that externally resembles the Frisbee atop Western-made AWACS aircraft. Thanks to its radar, which can detect air targets at a range of up to 650 kilometers and ground targets from up to 300 kilometers, the A-50Us are vital to maintaining air superiority by providing a friendly air force with targets to attack. According to the Military Balance and World Air Forces, before the war, Russia had between 10 and 14 A-50 aircraft. At the time of making this video, 1 of them had been damaged and 2 of them had been lost. The cost of one A-50 is around $330 million. Interestingly, Russia wants to replace its A-50 fleet with a new Beriev A-100. However, because of the sanctions, its development has been delayed. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. See you next time.